What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So if you guys have been following this channel for a while, you guys know that the radius arm drop brackets that are on this truck I custom built about 6-7 months ago. We put these aftermarket James Duff coil towers in this Ford, and we lowered the coil towers about 5 inches. So factory, the coil was like more up here. Doing that, it lifted the truck more. Well, we ran into a problem with the spring not being able to go in because our radius arm is at too bad of an angle. So we had to build these drop brackets. We did that, everything was good. I actually added on some room because I knew I wanted to lift it more in the future. So I came in and I put these 4-inch lift spacers up here in the front to lift it another 4 inches. Well, what that did is maxed out our arms again, and that's what's causing this spring to bow. If you can tell, we have a little bit of a bow in the spring. It's not terrible, honestly. We could drive it like this, but I figured might as well do it right, make sure everything is safe. So I went on Rough Stuff Specialties and I was shopping. I shopped all online. I typed in all these different things on Google, trying to find all these just different ideas I could try, because the whole reason I had to build those custom drop brackets is because I have the biggest radius arm drop there is. And so I couldn't find anything to drop more. That's when I built those brackets. Well, we've maxed those out. So that was kind of a waste of time. But now I found these DOM tubing pieces on Rough Stuff Specialties. They come to a 45-degree angle. I believe they're about 48 inches in length. So what it does is it comes out straight like this and then turns up. So my idea was to first try to unbolt this and see if we could slide the tubing up over here, and that would cause it to come out straight and then go up. If that doesn't work, my backup plan is to cut right up here, put the DOM tubing on at an angle, and then have it come up and turn. I bought some little bushing sleeves that go down on the end, so we can actually put it up, keep them greased, and keep it articulating at a good angle. That way we don't run into anything binding or breaking on the bottom of the truck. But first we have to get all of that apart, so I'm gonna pull the truck up a little bit farther. That way it's not torn apart at the end of the driveway, and start tearing everything apart. Alright, this is the jankest level if you've ever seen one, but we got it perfectly level up on the pipe stands. A little bit tooted up like this, just a little bit. But now what we can do is come back here, take these bolts out. There's a bolt right here, bolt right here, bolt right here, so we can take all of them out and then lower these radius arms, get them straight so these springs will straighten out. That's the whole reason I jacked this up some, because right now the spring is like this. When we bring it like this, that level, or that lift spacer that's in there, is gonna kind of turn itself, so it might lift it a little bit more, but only time will tell. Okay, so I really just didn't pick up the camera, and I got this side apart, and I just went at it on the other side because I don't really know what I'm talking about with this. I'm just experimenting right now, and if it works, it works. But we kind of got it up and on there. It's just mocked up, it's not tacked or anything like that. We've got the radius arm ratchet strapped. Got that on the jack, and then on the jack stand. But let me show you guys kind of what I'm thinking. It kind of works out perfect because the flared end of the radius arm right here is like the perfect diameter of the DOM tubing. So if we got everything lined up with it, it almost works out perfect. The only problem we run into is the exhaust might be in the way, but I will cut the exhaust and re-weld that before I make anything work around it, because one, I hate that freaking muffler, so it's not staying on there. But for two, the radius arm is a lot more important than the exhaust. So this might work, it might not, don't really know yet. I'm debating on tacking it. The only problem is we've got a little bit of a gap right here, but I think if we jack this radius arm up a little bit more, because we have to take into consideration the truck is on pipe stands right now, so there's no weight on the springs. The truck's going to come down, it's going to compress those springs more, which is also going to bring the body down more. So I've got the tubing angled up quite a bit to get it close to the frame, but we might be able to close that gap on there because the frame's going to come down maybe another inch or two. So I'm going to say it's going to come down another 2 inches. If it comes down 2 inches, it's like perfectly right at the frame, but that would close our gap right there. I just want to make sure all of our angles are good, because I have to tack this, and then I am going back down to Florida later this week, and I'm going to have someone weld it for me down there, because my 110 is not strong enough to weld quarter wall. And I mean, I could weld it, but it wouldn't get good penetration, and this isn't something to mess with. It's one thing if you're like welding just for support and you're also bolting down, but this weld is going to it's going to structurally hold this together. So if that weld fails, this is going to fail in total. Luckily, the big thing we have going for us, if this weld were to fail, there's about another 4 inches of bolt that comes through into the DOM tubing, so that would have to separate. So this whole axle would have to go forward in order for that to come out. But if we were to grind that down a little bit, throw in a weld, grind a little bit, throw in a weld, grind a little bit, throw in another weld, grind that a little bit, throw in another weld, that should be plenty of penetration. This should not go anywhere whatsoever, and this truck's never going to be like a bog truck or anything like that. Well, it's the next day. I spent a little bit of time out here last night. I tried to tack it on to the first place I thought was going to work. Kind of got it to sit there, and did some research, talked with the person that's going to be welding this tubing onto the radius arm, and he basically said that it most likely wouldn't hold there and it probably wouldn't be very safe. And it got me to thinking, yeah, you're really right. I did a lot of research online, diving into forums from 10 plus years ago, and I'll throw up a picture on the screen of kind of what I'm going for. So we're going to come in here, we're going to make our first cut like right about here. The width of the DOM tubing is 2 inches, so we're going to cut right where it begins, 2 inches, and then we can cut a slat in the center of the tubing right here down the line, and we could slide it over the center of this radius arm. Now, why I plan on doing that is, one, there's more surface area for the person I'm having to weld this, they can weld to, because cast steel and mild steel, it's a tricky situation to weld. So I watched a lot of dirt lifestyle, and I did a lot of research on Google, and really why it's so tricky to weld cast steel. A lot of people call this cast iron. It is not cast iron. It is different than cast iron, but it has a lot of the similar properties and different components in it that make it similar to cast iron. But this is cast steel, and welding mild steel to cast steel, you have to preheat the cast to around 500 degrees, and then you want to weld it. Now the problem that you run into is the different steels with the different things they have inside. I'm trying to think of like the proper word, but the different I think it's iron and carbon and like a bunch of different things that are in the metal itself that makes up the metal. they cool at different temperatures. So the mild steel actually cools faster than the cast steel, and what that does is cause it to expand and shrink at different times, and that will cause your weld to break. So what you can do is take some MAP gas, heat it up, weld it, then take a thermometer, I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with words, take a thermometer and check the temperature of each piece of steel, and whichever one is lower, you want to heat it up to match the other one, and do that until it completely cools down. So I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to drill 2 bolt holes through the pipe and through the radius arm and bolt it on the other side. That way, God forbid I'm ever driving this and that weld fails, I will have the bolts that will not only hold it there, but keep it from going anywhere, keep it from breaking. I'll put 2 grade 8 bolts in there, and that'll just kind of be some reassurance, and it'll also help keep it from moving at all. So now I've got my cut wheel. I'm gonna cut this radius arm down. You know, I'm gonna measure a couple times just before I cut. I'm gonna cut a little bit farther back than what I originally plan on doing. That way, God forbid I were to cut too much, it's easier to cut more than it is to replace. So I'm just gonna do all this off camera. It's really boring to watch someone cut everything. I just want to keep you guys updated with what's going on, what's going through my head. But this is about what it's going to look like. Before, it was like coming all the way back over here where I originally tried to weld it to, which is the very end right here, and it was like coming all the way up like this. I just wasn't a fan of it. So now this time it's going to be almost right behind where it was before, but it's going to look a little bit better. And remember, when this truck comes down, the frame's going to come down about another 2 inches, so it's actually going to work out almost perfect. Okay, so I kind of need to like update you guys. I think this is the most poorly filmed video I've ever done on my channel, and I've been doing this for almost 3 years now. So we got our radius arms. I had showed you guys what all we were planning on doing, but I ran out of time when I was up here doing it. I got this one like 80% of the way down the passenger side, and I just ran out of time. So I got my measurements, got everything kind of where I wanted it, and had to take it to Florida with me. And I told you guys the person I was having weld it was in Florida, so I kind of needed everything ready when I got to him. Well, I didn't have everything ready, and luckily I had some time to get some stuff ready, and he was nice enough and actually stayed after work an extra 3 hours to get at least some of it welded. So these are the welds that he did, and they look sick. So what we ended up doing was cutting the original radius arm down. I had to shave inside the lips of it, and then cut a big slot in the DOM tubing, hammer the tubing on, and then weld it all the way around. Now, like I mentioned earlier in this video, cast steel has to be heated up before it gets welded. And the problem you run into with cast steel is they slow down at different times, and that can cause the weld to crack. Well, luckily, the person I had that welded this is a very, very good welder. Put some very fat welds on there, so there's no doubt in my mind that those are not going anywhere. But like I said, we were very, very crunched on time. Unfortunately, I did not go prepared, and we weren't able to weld the bushing sleeves on. And you know, I kind of need those to drive because nothing is going to hold this axle underneath the truck without the radius arms. And that is where this new Century flux core welder comes into play. It welds up to 1/4 inch right here. So I found this on Facebook Marketplace literally the day after we couldn't finish these radius arms. The guy that had this does a lot of liquidation lots. And if you don't know what liquidation is, basically he buys things in bulk from stores and resells them. So he might say buy a liquidation pallet for $300 and it might have $200 worth of stuff on it, or it might have $2,000 worth of stuff on it. A lot of the times it's things that have either been returned to stores or went out of stock, something like that. And they basically just buy and resell things. So this is actually brand new, still has all the twist ties on everything, still has the certificate from LinkedIn to register the welder. We picked this up to weld our bushing sleeves in. I needed a stronger welder anyways, and you guys are probably thinking, Aaron, why didn't you get a normal MIG welder that uses gas? The problem with that is, one, I'm very new to this area. I don't know where anything is. I don't know where any good reputable shops, welding shops, anything like that is. I had actually made a post in a Facebook group for up here where I'm at, looking for someone to weld the bushing sleeves. And I had one place tagged by one person. Didn't have much of an option to choose through anybody. So there's not very many places up here. So I would have probably paid a shop probably $150 to weld the bushing sleeves on, but I was able to buy this welder for $140. So I'm going to be selling my old welder, which will also help pay for the new welder I got. But now we can weld everything ourselves. I don't have to pay anybody to do anything. I highly doubt I will ever weld anything larger than 1/4 inch. I mean, I'm pretty sure my frame is 1/4 inch, so I don't think I'll be welding anything bigger than that. But I do have some 4x12 1/4 inch hot rolled or cold rolled, something like that steel coming tomorrow to make our mounts out of. But let me show you what we're working with the radius arms. So if we look right up in here, we've got our radius arm mount that comes back to the DOM tubing, and it comes back, and right here you see I've got this cut. This is our bushing sleeve right here. It's gonna weld right into here like this, and then we're gonna build a mount that comes up off the frame up here. It's gonna come out to the side. We're gonna brace it to go up flat with the frame, and then the mount itself is actually going to be on the bottom of the brace. So it will be a little bit more structurally sound than our last mount, which is a very good thing. The only thing that people have mentioned that I've told that I'm doing it is they're worried that I didn't go with a heim joint style on the end, because if this axle articulates, there's not going to be any play in that bushing. So what they're saying is if the axle goes like this, the bushing would therefore have to go like this, but it's not going to be able to because it's a bushing, not a heim joint. Well, heim joints don't have that much play either, but you know, you work with what you got. I just need this to get the truck to Daytona. That is all we need. The truck is now registered. The truck does now have a license plate. It is in another state because I couldn't register it here in Georgia. I had to register it actually in Florida because the truck's illegal in Georgia. So is that truck. They're both illegal in the state of Georgia. So they had to be registered in another state, but they're both registered now. They both have legal insurance. Both trucks are ready to be on the road. So this is our last step besides mounting the shocks before we can legally drive this anywhere we want. So I'm going to get these radius arms finished up, get some paint on them, and hopefully get everything finished tomorrow. Guys, I'm so sorry this video has been all over the place. I'm really sorry. Just has not gone the way I wanted it to. It's just been very hectic trying to get this truck done for Daytona. Okay, here's a little dip into my mind so I can explain to you guys what I'm going for. So this right here is our frame. So we're gonna run a piece of 1/4 inch all the way across, a piece of 3/16 up, piece of 1/4 inch across, and 1/4 inch down. Now the reason why I'm running 3/16 upwards is because I don't have enough 1/4 inch coming in. This is where it runs into of doing stuff in a hectic manner, is these got a rough measurement and welded. So I didn't have the truck with me, which you would like to be able to put it up on the truck, get it exactly where you want it, cut it and weld it, and then you have it set. Well, I didn't have the truck with me for either of them. I got one of them pretty close and I just based the second one off of it. Well, weirdly enough, the second one turned out the best and the first one's just a hair off, which is weird. How I don't know how that works, but I originally wanted it to just come straight off the center of the frame, which is where I thought it was coming from. So I was just gonna do 1/4 inch down, 1/4 inch across, 1/4 inch down again to our bushing. But somehow our bushing ended up out past our frame. So I'm going to use a solid piece of 1/4 inch right here, so it's very sturdy. If I have to, I'll use 1/4 inch all the way across and then 1/4 inch down, brace this on the back side of it so I know it's not going anywhere, and then I can run 2 pieces of 3/16 up and 3/16 down right here and bolt it to the frame. Now if you guys remember, these drop brackets that are on the truck right here were held on by 3 bolts. So I'm probably going to do about the same with that. Not entirely sure yet. I might do 2 bolts and tack weld it all the way around, since now I have a welder that I could actually weld on this frame with. But not entirely sure yet. I'm gonna get it all put up on the truck tomorrow once it comes in, but we are getting very close. Alright, days later, I think it's 2 days since I last saw you guys, but everything is bolted together, everything's done. I ran into some problems since I lowered the axle and I tilted it forward. The spacers that we had were causing, well, not really even the spacers fault, it would be that way with or without the spacers, but the axle was now pointing like this, and it was causing the spring to bow because the spring's coming straight down, and if the axle's like this, it's going to cause it to come out and around like that. So what I did is I took 3 washers and I put them on this side of the spacer, and it straightened the spring out quite a bit. I mean, you honestly can barely even tell on camera it's bent, but that's how that's gonna have to ride until we go to coilovers. But we have our shocks in, our shock mounts are welded, shocks are bolted in, everything is bolted in back here. I still have to take off the old radius arm mounts, but what I want to do right now is back this out, clean up a lot of the metal shavings from cutting and drilling because I've been kneeling in them for like 2 days now. But I want to get this thing pulled out and kind of show you guys what it's like, get the truck to move on it. I think I'm gonna drive it around the neighborhood, see how it does. and then clean everything up, and either tonight or tomorrow I'm gonna take it on its first drive to the gas station in 5 years. Okay, so I've done a terrible job of being a YouTuber this entire video, but I took it on a drive around the neighborhood, and it did good around the neighborhood, and then I made sure all my bolts were tight, my U-bolts, shock bolts, everything was tight. I put an exhaust hanger on it to keep my muffler from hitting the frame, and then I take it off and you guys hear that ding, 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 ding. It's not like a drive shaft or anything like that. It's actually, my muffler didn't have any exhaust hangers, so it was just bouncing and hitting the frame. We got that taken care of, and I actually just went on my first trip to the gas station with it, since we are officially tagged. Got our tag right here. I officially went to the gas station with the truck. First time being on the road in quite some time. I do need to try and align this a little bit better. It's kind of hard to tell on camera, but see how we were at like direct center of the tire right here, and then right here not so much. So the axle needs to go like 1/2 inch to the left. Well, if you're facing forward, it needs to go 1/2 inch to the right, because it definitely pulls to the left, and you can feel it when you're driving. And this being such an old truck and having old steering and everything, has a lot of play in the steering. So when you're trying to correct it, you're just doing this the whole time. But the truck is finally done. I think tomorrow and Saturday I might wire the rock lights on it, and I might paint the radius arms. I don't really want to take the radius arms off because I know they're going to be a freaking pain to get back on. So I don't really know if I'll paint them. If I do paint them, I might just spray like everything black and just leave it at that. But here is the final product of our mounts. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but here's our final product. We've got some tack welds holding it on, and then we've got 2 1/2 inch bolts, a 1/2 inch bolt holding the radius arm, goes down, bolts to the axle. But that is not going anywhere. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I will come back in and put a bolt underneath the bottom of the frame and probably weld a little bit more around it. I welded more on the other side, but I was tired of getting my arms burnt doing it, so I gave up. So if you guys made it this far in the video, you guys are freaking troopers, because this video has been all over the place. I can't even keep up with it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, go down, hit the subscribe button. We got a lot more content coming with this thing, and now that this is basically done, we can finally back this out of the garage. So I'll catch you in the next one, guys. See ya.